Only 27% of people listen or read to 10 or more books per year.
I mean, you gave me an aha moment between learning and growing. And when we really apply those 3 words, we can shift from just learning to growing.
Or have a conversation with peers and say, here's where I'm trying to grow. Here's one thing that I want to do. What's a piece of advice you have for me? Or if you were in my shoes and this is where you wanted to grow, what would you do? True or false? According to Gallup, 27% of Americans, only 27% of Americans, read or listen to 10 or more books per year.
See, you try to trip me up with all those numbers. 27%, 10 or more per year.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say false. That's very specific.
It's true. It's true. Only 27% of people read. So this is like a printed book, but this is also like even like audiobooks. Only 27% of people listen or read to 10 or more books per year.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of low.
It is low. So a book, like do you consider like a podcast series a book?
I don't think so. From
Okay,
this survey, it looked like it wasn't just a podcast. It was a book.
To a book. Okay.
Now, they turned the book into audio format, but it
That
had to have been a
counts.
whole book, not just a podcast episode. So you don't get credit if you're listening to this podcast right here.
I say you do.
Wow.
Not part of that statistics.
We're here today to talk about how we don't want to stop learning and growing. Welcome to another episode of Hey, Don't Do That. My name is Liz.
My name is Tree.
Oh, I just forgot what I was going to say, Tree.
Well, don't stop.
We're not going to
learning.
stop learning and growing because sometimes we forget things.
You just learned it.
I just learned something. We're always growing. Nobody's perfect.
Uh-huh.
But on the podcast,
Yes.
we explore the little things that nobody tells you that have really big impacts on your motivation, effectiveness, and success.
Mm-hmm.
I got to have a conversation
Yes.
with someone last week,
Okay.
and they were in a leadership development program. They were going through some exercises. One was specific to giving appreciation, right? And showing recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said, no, I don't need to do that. And everyone in the group, they said, they were like, it was kind of this moment of like, what? What do you mean? And this person said, I don't need to do that. I already do that. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I just was thinking, I'm like, if I were in that room, oh my gosh, I wanted to just look at that person, or I would have told the person, like, don't stop growing. Don't stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't get to the spot where you say, okay, I know it all. I've done it all. I don't need that.
Yeah.
We always have opportunities to learn and grow. Always.
We do. And we sometimes have to remind ourselves that we're doing that. That we're saying, oh, I already know. Like, I have to remind myself from time to time too, like, don't have that mindset of like, I already know how it's done or how to do it. Yeah. So it takes effort to remind yourself to have that growth mindset. Yeah. Right?
Beginner's mind from Zen. It's a great concept. Mm-hmm. It says we want to show up to everything in life in the way a beginner would. So we want to show up and we want to ask the simple questions. We want to be curious. We want to be engaged. We want to show up with wonder instead of, oh, I've done that before. I already know how to do that. When we show up with that attitude, we might actually realize, oh, maybe I didn't learn something new, but maybe I was able to fully understand something that I already know.
Yeah.
Right? There's some things that maybe we know, but we don't really understand them. Mm-hmm. And there's even so much power in those concepts that it's like, yeah, I know what that means. I've done that before. But do we really understand the importance? Do we understand why that thing is so important or how that's impacting us in our roles now? Like sometimes it's not about literally learning something new that you've never heard of. It's just about understanding at a deeper level what you already know.
So So what I'm hearing is like the self-awareness and increase your understanding of something. And what would be the impact when we do that? Like,
what
do you think?
Gosh, when we continue to understand those things, we continue to do things differently. Like, we're not doing things the same way, and not only are we doing things differently, but we're often doing them better or more effectively. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think of, Dale Carnegie. The Dale Carnegie course, if you've ever taken it, you've heard these. There are 5 drivers for success. Tree, we're going to ping pong them. Self-confidence.
Leadership skills.
Yep. People skills.
Communication skills.
And the 5th one is stress and worry. Managing stress and worry. Okay, so these are the 5 things that we focus on at Dale Carnegie. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of organizations focus on skills similar to these.
Yeah.
I think these 5 skills, whenever I'm facilitating, I say, what's the end? How do you know when you got it? Mm-hmm. And, people will look at you and they'll like, well, and there isn't one. Like, we never get to a spot where we say, you know what? I have all the leadership skills in the world.
Right.
Well, why? Because the world is constantly changing. I mean, I think of today, how much is changing in organizations. One, just in the way we work. Hybrid work versus all in the office or all remote. Generative AI.
Yeah.
All of these things are changing. And so if you thought 10 years ago you had leadership figured out, well, you hadn't been through any of this. Right? Mm-hmm. The same thing with people skills or communication or stress. Like, nothing in the people realm has an endpoint where you can say, I'm done. I get to wash my hands and say, I'm the best. I've done everything as perfectly as possible.
Yeah. And we tell people all the time, like, even though you think you know, or you think you already know everything, are you actually doing that?
Oh.
Right? We says, like, common sense is not always the same as common practice, right? That person might says, I'm already appreciating people. Well, are you really doing it? Mm-hmm. Or you just have it in your head? Because survey says there's a gap. There's a gap between what managers think, how often they appreciate their employees versus how the employees actually feel about the appreciation. So they might think they're doing it. Are you really doing it? Is a different discussion.
Okay, so Dale Carnegie's quote, knowledge isn't power until it's applied, right?
Yeah.
Or I think of Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar said, how you do anything is how you do everything.
I love that quote.
There's a big difference maybe between learning and growing.
Ooh, tell us the difference.
Right? Learning is knowledge. I'm reading the book. I'm watching the video. I've learned that concept, that idea, right? We can learn all of these things. But we don't grow until we do those things, right? I can learn about how to be a better coach.
Yeah.
I can learn about good leaders.
Yes.
But I don't grow as a leader until I say, this new thing that I learned, let me try that.
Yes.
And I think one interesting thing is sometimes we grow more or we learn more from failure than from when it works.
Okay, talking about failure. You probably know this study in Atomic Habits from James Clear, right?
Okay, maybe you tell me which one it is.
Professor from Florida has 2 groups, right? One group of students, he was told, take 100 pictures, you get an A. The other group was told, take the perfect picture and you get an A, right? If you take the other group, if you take 100, you get an A, 90 you get a B, etc. The other group, you have to take a perfect picture to get an A. And then they turn in the pictures, and they found that the group who took 100 pictures produced the best photos, versus the group who was asked to take the perfect picture, turn in the perfect picture. And that's a reminder of, to learn and grow, you gotta not be afraid of failure. You gotta take many pictures. Don't just take one perfect picture. You gotta be willing to take and retake those pictures. Be like, okay, maybe I don't like how I did that, because maybe I quote unquote fail at that time. I'm going to try it differently. And, practice makes permanent. And the more we practice, the better we get. We don't get better or grow by planning. We get better and grow by practicing. Right? And that's just one study to remind us that don't be afraid of failure, because that's how you grow.
It's almost that idea of try and try again.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely does it happen the first time. And I think often about people who will say to me, if they're saying, oh, Liz, what would you suggest I do here? Or how can I do this? Mm-hmm. And then you say something, you ask a question, you put something out there, and then they say, oh, I tried that before. I tried that before, it didn't work.
Yeah.
It's like, well, did you try it one time? And it didn't work? And so then sometimes we write things off. We're like, oh, well, that didn't work. And maybe we squash this opportunity to learn or grow because we said, well, I tried it the first time. I tried it one time and that didn't work.
Yeah.
When maybe it's not that it didn't work. It's just that it didn't work yet. Mm-hmm. And so we have to try it again. Yeah. Or try it differently.
Yes.
Or with another person or on another team. And it could end up working in the end. But when we just automatically assume, oh, I've done that before. I did that before. It didn't work.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell everybody the 3 words you tell us all the time when it comes about trying new skills? What are those 3 words?
Consistent, intentional, and proactive.
Yes.
If we want to grow
and
we want to learn, those are the 3 things we have to do. We have to be consistent.
Yeah.
Not just one time, not 2 times, but many times. We have to be intentional about learning and growing. It's not just like, oh, that happened to work, right? Yeah. We have to be intentional about it. And you have to be proactive. You can't sit back and wait.
Yes.
Right? We have to say, okay, I'm going to go make this happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we don't have those 3, we don't learn, we don't grow.
Yeah. And you gave me an aha moment between learning and growing. And when we really apply those 3 words, we can shift from just learning to growing. It's because you're actually going out there and doing stuff and practicing, and that's when you truly grow. And it's so powerful to think of it that way. It's because you can learn all you want, but if you don't actually practice, you don't grow. You're not really growing into that better version of yourself that you're working towards by just gaining knowledge.
And it can probably work both ways, right? Some people are really lucky and they learn and then they grow. And that might shorten that learning curve from, oh, I tried it and it didn't work, right? Maybe we have a better first try. It can also work the other way, right? We can grow and then learn from it. I think of so many leaders and managers who get promoted because they're good at what they do. Okay, it happens. They all of a sudden are forced to grow. Hey, we want you to go give performance feedback. Hey, you're now taking on bigger projects. Maybe we haven't learned those skills, but all of a sudden we're growing. Now, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but because we were just forced to grow, we can then say, oh, this is what I learned. Okay, I had to give coaching and feedback for the first time. What did I just learn? Well, that was not the right way to do it, right? To just show up and say, I didn't like the way you did this, and I thought you should have done this. That didn't seem to work very well. Well, I hadn't learned that before, but I learned it then. Sometimes it's like when we're growing, we're learning those lessons along the way. Now, it's helpful if we can learn something and then apply it to help us grow, but it can almost work in reverse too. And sometimes we say, okay, let me just throw myself in this situation to grow, and then I'm going to say, what did I learn from that? Mm-hmm. It can almost work either way, I think.
Yeah. It reminds me of that study. Like, you just got to take as many pictures as you can, get your reps in.
And then through the taking the pictures, they probably learned, oh, this looked good. This made it look better. This did not work. Mm-hmm. And they're learning at the same time. And probably even learned more than the people who took one perfect picture or tried to take one perfect picture.
Right. So what are some ways that we can learn and grow?
One, I think if we want to learn, reading is a great way to do it. Read books about good leaders. Observe good leaders. Listen to those podcasts. Watch TED Talk. Like, those are all great ways we can learn. And then in terms of growth, I think one easy strategy is to have a conversation with your leader or have a conversation with peers and say, here's where I'm trying to grow. Here's one thing that I want to do. What's a piece of advice you'd have for me? Or if you were in my shoes and this is where you wanted to grow, what would you do? Yeah. I think that's probably an easy place for a lot of people to start, is to just get someone else to help you, right? And get some ideas for how we can grow. What book would you recommend? Yes. You could go learn from and then go apply to grow.
Yeah, because they say reading to your brain is like exercise to your body. Right?
Ooh, I've never heard that, Tree.
It's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Right? You're exercising your brain by reading. So reading and then ask advice from our leaders. I would also add, like, and you mentioned it, like, look to someone who is successful in the role that you want. Mm-hmm. That's really the person that you should seek advice from. It's like, hey, you really inspire me. I want to be where you are. How can I start? And then right there, I feel like that's so important to know, like, what do you want? Who can help you? Who is someone in that position that can help you?
Yeah.
And then ask for that advice.
So if you're a leader and you are saying, or if you're just listening to this and you say, I'm interested in this, I want to learn more about this, there's a great book by Dan Sullivan, and it's called Who, Not How.
Who, Not How.
And so he talks about when we want to grow. A lot of times it's not how am I going to get there, but who can help me, right? Who's the right person to help me? And so sometimes it is just making that shift to focus on who, not how.
Okay, so that makes me think of something. What are some ideas to foster a culture of learning for a team or for an organization? What are some of your ideas? We have to give people those opportunities and say, hey, this is an opportunity for you to grow. You're sitting in on more client meetings. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for you to grow. And I think presenting those opportunities in a low risk scenario. Yeah. Right? Don't throw someone into something where it could make or break their career. Or if it doesn't go well, they're going to lose the biggest account. Mm-hmm. But what are some of those small ways where you can start exposing people in your organization to either different roles or different parts of the organization? Mm-hmm. This is what you say in another episode. I do, we do, you do.
Yeah.
Right? Watch me do it first, and then maybe we do it together, and let me see you do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
To learn and grow.
Or even just support their development. I mean, if we're not asking those questions as leaders, how do we know where people want to grow? So as leaders, we have to ask the question, where do you want to be? What is it that you're loving right now? What are you not loving right now? Yes. If you could do more of something, what do you want to do more of? Where do you see yourself in the next 2-3 years? Because leaders, we have to ask those questions.
Yes.
Because it's not up to us where people grow. Like, they get say in it too, if we want them to be bought in. So as leaders, it's a simple thing. Just ask the questions.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, I can think of, as employees and then contributors to a team, it's so important to focus on not only planning out the next step. Think about what are the skill sets you're trying to build. Build a portfolio of skill sets that's going to help us make ourselves more capable, and also helps to do with, like, if there's changes in the organization or the economy and, job changes. When we have those skills we can tap into, depending on the situation, it's going to make us more marketable, more valuable.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So say yes to projects that doesn't have directly to do with your work, and see if you can grow in that area.
Do you think you're going to grow in trivia today? Or do you think you might learn something in trivia today?
I need some advice.
I did tell Tree before we started today, I said, today's trivia is kind of tough.
Well.
So I did preface him with the fact that, you know what, you might learn some things. And this one might be tough. But you know what, Tree? You never know.
I'm always growing.
Yeah, you never know. You might crush it.
Okay.
Okay. I will start the timer once I ask the first question.
Okay.
At 98 years old, Nola Oakes was the oldest recipient of a master's degree from Fort Hays State University in 2010. Mm-hmm. What did she receive her degree in?
In communications.
No. Who is famous for the quote, "Once you stop learning, you start dying"?
Ooh. Wait, I don't know who says that quote. I should look it up.
Okay, how many self-help books are estimated to be published in the United States each year?
2000s.
No. In 1904, which internationally acclaimed author and lecturer was the first deaf-blind person to graduate from college?
Helen Keller?
Yes.
Oh.
All right, every 2 years, doctors in the state of Missouri, where we live, are required to complete how many hours of continuing medical education to renew their license?
45 hours.
You were very close. Doctors have to have 50 hours of continuing medical education.
Plus or minus 5. I think I got that.
I will count. We can count that. Plus or minus 5 hours. Done. But yeah, even doctors have to do it. It's like written into state law. They have to continue learning and growing 50 hours every
Can you imagine if they
2
don't
years.
do that?
Oh my gosh, I don't think you would want to go to that doctor.
You don't.
With how much health changes. Yes, you're right about Helen Keller. In 1904, she graduated college. How many self-help books are published in the United States every year?
10,000.
15,000. That's a really big number. Mm-hmm. And only 27% of people will even read 10. Not even just of self-help books. So I wonder how many just books are published.
It's probably 10 times.
Oh, it's got to be. Okay, who's famous for the quote, "Once you stop learning, you start dying"?
Who says that?
Albert Einstein. Right? One of the best scientists in history.
Once you stop learning, you start dying.
And then Nola Oakes, 98 years old, got her master's degree in history. Aww. I know! It's maybe because she knew so much about history, because she's lived so much history.
Huh. I wonder if okay.
Trey's now thinking about what he might want to get a degree in. When he's 98 years old.
When I'm 98 years old. Yeah.
So after listening to this episode, think about one place in your life where you want to continue learning or you want to continue growing.
Yeah.
Don't stop learning or growing. Talk to a manager. Find someone else who can help you. Continue learning and growing, and you'll continue to improve. We will see you next time on another episode of Hey, Don't Do That. Bye, everybody.
Bye.